right, Nathan, welcome to another TFL Now live show. In this video, we are answering all your questions and talking about a pretty special vehicle, the updated Rav4 Prime.
That's right. This is a vehicle that we have tested in the past, but this one's been updated, and it's fast. I know that sounds strange with the Rav4, but I've driven two different Primes, and they're remarkably quick for being a Rav4.
Yeah, this is, of course, a vehicle that's been around for a couple of years now. It's pretty well established. The 2022's got some updates, and we're going to talk about availability, the best parts about it, the worst parts about it, and what makes it so cool. So let's start with the engine. Now, Nathan, you drove it around a bunch of events, and you drove it around today. What do you think is so wrong?
It's interesting. A couple things about the Prime. It has a brother, which I've also driven, and that is the Lexus NX. I said 450H plus, Zach, is that what it was? And essentially they're the same vehicle. That one's a little bit more elegant in terms of wrapper and interior. But this powertrain puts out, this is combined, 302 horsepower. Now think about the fact that this thing weighs a little over 2 tons. I mean, it's not light because of the battery and everything else. It is legitimately fast. And the cool part about it is that with all this power, you still get pretty remarkable range, MPGE, which I'll show you in a minute, and also all-wheel drive. And that's something that some of the competitors do not offer.
Yeah, so the deal with the Rav4 Prime, right? It's a plug-in hybrid vehicle. So what that means is that it's got both gasoline and electric technologies. And some people think it's the best of both worlds. Some people think it's the worst of both worlds. But you can go 42 miles on a single charge on electricity only. So you can plug it in at home, charge it up in a couple hours or overnight or whatever, wake up in the morning and drive 42 miles on electricity. And then when you're out of electricity, the fun isn't over because you can go like another 560 miles on gasoline for a total range of 600. So the idea being that, on a road trip, fill it up with gasoline like you would a standard hybrid. Around town, you got yourself a battery electric. Now, what do you think, Nathan? Could you live with a plug-in hybrid?
Yeah, plug-in hybrids are an interesting solution to what's becoming more and more of an issue for a lot of you guys out there. Many of you do not want to get rid of internal combustion engines, partially because they're so easy to keep going. I mean, if you 5 minutes at a gas station, 10 minutes at the most, you have a full tank of gas and you can keep on going, whereas in an electric vehicle, I don't know of anything that can come even close to being able to be refueled and moved. And the cool part about this is that, let's say you're just running it as a standard hybrid, you're getting 38 miles per gallon, 38, and it can get 94 mpge, it's the equivalent. So this vehicle, if you're the type of person who only travels, let's say 20, 30 miles a day, you can plug this in at home and you can drive this every day just using the electric battery, meaning that during expensive times with the gasoline, like today, you wouldn't really need it. In fact, you could probably go a couple weeks if you're just commuting on electricity alone. And that in itself is a pretty cool thing.
Now, the other flip side of that coin, right, is plug-in hybrids are not very good electric cars because they're lugging around a gasoline engine, which is turned off.
Yep.
And they're not very good gasoline cars because they're lugging around the big high-voltage battery, which is not being used when you're running on gasoline. So typically, I believe that this is the case on the Rav4. The Prime gets worse gas mileage than the standard hybrid because it's got 18 kilowatt hours versus 1.5. It's a lot heavier. But I do tend to agree. I'm looking on the bright side of life.
Yeah.
If you had a commute cruising around town, you would never need to fill this thing up with gasoline. Folks I've talked to on the forums and on YouTube will go 900 to 1,000 miles, 2,000 miles between fill-ups because they're just plugging it in at home.
Yeah, my brother has a plug-in hybrid, the Chevy, and although I'm not exactly thrilled with some of the things that have gone wrong with it, he managed to go 80 days without putting a dime into gas, and he only sucked up a little bit of energy at home because he only has a 5-mile commute. So another thing that you guys have to keep in mind is that there are several different flavors of Toyota RAV4. So you have the base engine, which is anemic and kind of dreadful. You can power front wheels, all-wheel drive, and you can step up to a more powerful engine. Then you have the hybrid, and then you have this powertrain. This is the most powerful powertrain out there amongst these vehicles. And on top of that, it is seriously fast. It is it's interesting because even though this is not a turbocharged engine, it kind of behaves like one. It just spools up and goes.
They say that this is the second quickest Toyota in the lineup. So
Which is kind of embarrassing when you think about it.
it's like Supra 6-cylinder,
Yeah.
then RAV4 Prime, and then like Supra 4-cylinder. And if you consider the Supra to be in partnership with BMW,
This is the fastest Toyota, pure Toyota out there, which is an issue.
0 to 16, 5.5, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what it is. I don't know if the update's any quicker or not. I don't think that's the difference. I think it's just some aesthetics and whatnot. We'll show you the interior in a second, but I did want to show them the plug-in and also the gas tank because it is an issue. For those of you who are curious, yes, I own an electric vehicle. My kid drives it. And one of the benefits of having a Nissan Leaf or a lot of other electric vehicles is that they have this plug-in port up front. Cool part about that is when you pull into these places that have plug-in ports that are needed up front, it's a breeze. When you have to have them in the back, I've actually had to back into spaces before with vehicles like this, and it's kind of a pain in the neck. I know it's for packaging reasons. That's what I've been told. See, come over here. You can see that this is where the fuel tank is. So it makes sense that they put one on the opposite side, I guess. But personally speaking, I'd much rather have the plug up front where Tommy is, or just past where Tommy is.
So speaking of chargers, there are two different onboard chargers. I know Dan Atkinson was talking about this a little bit in the comments. There's a 3.3 kilowatt on the base one and a 6.6 if you get the expensive one like this. And what's the Msrp on this guy?
All right, guys. I hope you're sitting down. If you're driving or if you're listening, please. Deep breath. $50,000. It's actually over that. It's $50,731. This is a $50,000 RAV4. I'm sorry, I have such a hard time getting my head around that. I know that the technical components underneath are worth money. You know what I mean? I know it's worth it. But the idea of buying almost any Toyota product other than maybe a Supra for over 50 grand is really hard for me to digest. I wanted to show them something back here, Tommy, if you don't mind. Real quick before we start answering some questions. And Zach, I'm sure we got a few queued up, right? By the way, I really do like driving these, but at least for me, and my legs aren't as long as Tommy's or Roman's. I have stubby legs and a long torso. I really wish the seat would go back like one more inch. It's just me. Okay, now this is something that's kind of rare in hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and electric vehicles. Ready? Ooh. Spare tire. A donut, yes. But these are actually not available in an awful lot of vehicles that are out there. There is space for them in some cases, but they do not come standard in many plug-in hybrids and electric vehicles. So I love the fact that this is here. The charger's right there. Actually really good packaging, a little extra cargo space there as well, in case you guys are curious.
So in the super chats, Luke01234 says, I just got a 2018 RAV4 XLE and love it. Thank you for the $5. And Old Timer 50K, wow. Thank you for the donation as well in super chats. And that's before, keep in mind, 50K before dealer markups, because this vehicle is notorious because of limited supply. We've seen him for 60K, 70K.
Yeah, it's stupid money that people are asking. I really, really do not like dealerships that try to, you know, I totally get it if they're saying, listen, you know, we're a little short on supply. There's a line, you know, here, extra 5% over. Okay, I guess I get that. But I've 10,000 over MSRP. I've seen it.
Right.
And it doesn't make any sense to me. I really hope that you guys don't get screwed with that, because at the end of the day, you're not going to make up that difference later on. Although Toyotas really do have excellent residual value, so keep that in mind.
Crazy good. So Dan has a Pacifica hybrid. He's one of our buddies.
Yeah.
He's talking about it. Great vehicle. He says 45 to 55, and it's true you get 3 rows and an amazing interior. The benefit of the RAV4 Prime, though, is you get all-wheel drive.
Right.
And it's a very unique all-wheel drive system. So what Toyota does is the gasoline engine only powers the front wheels, and the electric motor, there's only an electric motor in charge of the rear wheels, but it's a big, like, chunky, beefy electric motor.
Yeah, it is. Also, there is a second electric motor under the hood,
yeah.
But that is like a start-stop system. It's part of a starter as well, so it does a whole bunch of other things.
If I recall, I think there are 3 electric motors in total, and I need to check those facts, but there's a big one in the back.
Big one back here.
There's like the start-stop one, and I think there might be even a propulsion one as well, which helps with regen. But all that means is that you get insane power out of the RAV4 Prime. And these don't use like a cone belt CVT system. They use a planetary gear set.
Yeah,
So,
even they call it an eCVT, but that's really misleading. So it's not. It's
Right.
not at all. But it feels like one in most vehicles. And this one, it doesn't feel like that because this thing is stupid fast. So you just get immediate torque. And by the way, there is torque being fed to the rear wheels, but the rear wheels have nowhere near the power of the front wheels in terms of the amount of horsepower and torque that they're getting.
should we check out the interior, Alex?
Yes.
Now, you do pay a lot of money, but you do get, I think, what is quite a nice interior overall. Let me turn on the light. So, stitched leather everywhere, and I do like the red stitching. It does make it feel kind of a little bit sporty. Big 9-inch touchscreen there. What do you think of the buttons? Do you like the physical buttons?
You know, this is something that I wish they would do in the more modern Toyotas that I'm driving, having actual buttons and dials. I know Roman and I complain about that, and some of you guys out there are like, oh, you're old men, you shouldn't be complaining about that. But you know what? It's so much easier to use because you're not taking you can use feel in order to find where these buttons are in order to do volume and tuning.
Love it. I also love like the climate control, right?
Yeah, that's big chunky, and I just think it's great.
Look at the chunk factor there.
I mean, these things are, I think they're basically just part of a screen, and they're pretty simple. I'm okay with that. I can deal with it. Another thing is I like the dials. They're actual physical
knobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good. And you like these like little speed stripes they put on them too.
Yeah, that's really cool. And also the instrumentation, I think, is really well done. I like the fact that there are analog gauges mixed in with a digital display. Personally speaking, that's to my taste. Not everybody's going to love it. Now, one thing that I think people would be interested in is the different drive modes, and you have that right there next to you.
Yep. So from like a fun to drive standpoint, you've got a sport mode, and the knob turns red.
It turns red, and that's because sports.
Because sports.
And then green is eco.
Eco. Yeah, you want to show the gauge cluster? Look at that. You go from green to sport. Oh, very fancy. So that's pretty standard. There's also trail.
Right, and you're going to be messing with that tomorrow.
Hopefully, yeah. I'm going to try to take this thing off-road, see how it does.
Yeah.
And then these buttons are kind of the unique plug-in hybrid buttons.
Right.
So there's an electric mode, right, EV.
Mm-hmm.
There's a hybrid mode, HV. And then there's even a charge hold mode. So if you want to save the battery, push this one, and it will run on hybrid.
Yeah, primarily it'll, yeah. And the cool thing about all this is that let's say that you weren't able to plug in, but you really wanted electrical power later for whatever reason. You can basically drive this around like a regular hybrid, and it'll just keep storing up more and more power into the battery. And it's a pretty good size 18 kilowatt hour, right?
Yeah, it's a big chunker.
And I don't know how much of that you get. I'm guessing you probably get about 15 kilowatt hour or 14 kilowatt hour because they never use the full amount of the battery. But the competitor, which I just recently drove, is the Ford Escape hybrid or plug-in hybrid, right? And that one is only available front-wheel drive, and that has a 17 kilowatt hour battery, so it's a smaller one. Although the range on it is very competitive with this.
Although not as much horsepower.
Nowhere near.
Nowhere near.
No, nowhere near. That thing, by comparison, is extremely slow. But I mean, it's totally fine on its own.
Yeah,
If this is for a $50,000 vehicle. I'm sorry, but I mean, I want like free food service for a month and massages or something like that. Massaging seats. How about that?
By the way, Nathan, while we're on the subject of price, someone was asking what's the price of this car's brother, the Lexus RX 450H Plus. It's about $6,000 more.
Give or
this
take.
Tops out at 50. The NX is about 57.
Right. And you can easily get into the $60,000 bracket with the NX if you pile on all of the goodies and get the F Sport package. And there's another like additional tech package you can get on top of that. Honestly speaking, though, as much as I like that car, and I think it's a really pretty, smooth driving car, this makes a little bit more sense in certain ways. Also, the interior layout of this is really good for a family.
Oh, God.
Did you just set it off?
I did something I shouldn't have done.
Yeah, it doesn't like the key being left in there or something. Zach, did we ever figure out?
Yep, I got it.
It just yells at you.
It yells at you if you leave the key in the car.
It's a Toyota, so it yells at you no matter what. I mean, it's just, the nannies are really frustrating.
It does have Toyota Safety Sense 2.0, which I think are good. So it's got...
That's standard, by the way.
Standard, yeah. It's great. Every Toyota, it's got adaptive cruise control. It's got lane centering. It's got emergency braking. It's fantastic, by the way. And on the key, there's a button here called Hold AC. And in the summer, the idea is you have your car plugged in, push and hold that button, and it'll start the HVAC system while you're plugged in using a lot less electricity from the battery.
Electric cars do that as well. Some are less complicated than others. My daughter's car, because it's old, You have to actually trick it into turning on the heat before you unplug it. But the point is that if you use the energy that's pumping out of your house, let's say, as opposed to the vehicle's energy, you can have it either nice and cool or nice and toasty when you leave. And that way you're saving a lot of energy from the car, because it does take some miles away from the vehicle if you're pumping in AC as much as you can, or if you're pumping in heat as much as you can.
So people are talking about the fuel in the tank. It's recommended to kind of drive it around in gasoline. Typically, plug-in hybrids will do that automatically.
Yeah.
So they will cycle on the gasoline engine every now and then just to make sure.
It's almost imperceptible.
And they also pressurize the fuel tank in plug-in hybrids as well, which is interesting. Which is why when you go to push the button, 4xEs like this too, every Wrangler you can just open up the gas thing and plop fuel in it. But on plug-in hybrids, you have to release the pressure in the tank, and then there's a button you push before it'll let you fill it up, which is kind of an interesting thing. So Nathan, if you were in the market, like a $55,000 budget, would you get something like this, or like a Ford Mustang Mach-E, Hyundai Ioniq 5, maybe a Tesla? Would you go plug-in hybrid, or would you go full electric?
I can't get a gas car? Because that's almost the price of a Power Wagon. What the hell?
Have you seen gas prices, Nathan?
I know, dude. So I have a family and kids, dogs, cats, all that regrettable stuff. And so something along the lines of this in the state of Colorado would make a lot of sense, because it's good in snow. Although I'd change the tires. I'm not a big fan of these tires. They're low rolling resistance tires on really, really big wheels, all of which I would get rid of. Anyway, this would probably be my choice, although much cheaper and probably in the long run a way better vehicle in almost every way, except it doesn't have all-wheel drive, would be the Ford Maverick Hybrid.
Oh.
I love that. Yeah, there's some compromises you have to make. I already figured it out. Alex and I, he's behind the camera, we're going to hook up a chainsaw engine or motor engine, and we're going to power the rear wheels when needed.
Are you?
Yeah, that's he and I are going to hook that up. We're going to call it the Maverick Plus.
Yeah, only two-stroke Maverick on the
Well,
market.
who needs that? Just need a few horsepower to get yourself out of snow. He's already thinking about it. He's like, dude, Ford's going to hire me.
Alex just bought a Cummins. I don't think he's going to be strapping chainsaw engines to the
Yeah,
back
he also
of
has a push-start motorcycle that, is a monkey. We'll go into that another time. Anyway, the point is that I would actually, my money, that's where I would go, because I just want a little truck like that. But this does make a lot of sense. I think my wife would like driving this too. And I think it's a decent looking vehicle. I don't like this color, by the way. This color hides all the lines, all the new schmutz they did to it, the more aggressive headlights, grille. And about half of this is actually usable, which is cool.
Do you like the new headlights?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're all right.
Nice little update for 22.
It's a minor update. The rear, I don't think it has any real updates. But all in all, Toyota has gone with the angry grille that's too big in most cases. I honestly don't think this is too big. This is actually, I think, a decent size compared to some of the other Toyota grills I've seen out there.
Dan says, what about a PHEV all-wheel drive Maverick? Plug-in hybrid Maverick.
I would love it. And they have the technology to do it. Ford can totally do it. The question really is, how would that affect their investment? So if they invested in building a vehicle like that, would that take away from, let's say, Ranger sales, which is a bulk vehicle for them? It might. There's a lot of questions that we can't answer that Ford could answer if Ford actually answered our questions.
The issue, my constant issue with plug-in hybrids, especially when you're looking at like a Maverick, is that whenever you start adding like 10, 15, 20 kilowatt hours worth of battery, the price just goes, it explodes typically. And when you're looking at a Maverick, the whole point of the hybrid Maverick is to be like dirt cheap, basic, usable.
Entry level.
Add plug-in hybrid to a Maverick, and that thing is going to just explode in value.
They're going to be $40,000 base price at least.
I am not
double the price of what they are now.
I'm not an industry wizard.
Yeah,
but Ford cannot be making money on a base model Maverick. I just don't believe it.
Bulk changes everything. If you sell 50, it's one thing. If you sell 5,000, it's another. And they're selling a lot. But there is something else to keep in mind, and this is something that is always in the back of my mind when I think about hybrids, and especially plug-in hybrids. You have two different powertrains. You have two different sources of storing energy, right? You have double the complexity, meaning that down the road, when things start getting a lot of miles on them, you have two different systems that you have to service and maintain. And it's double the complexity. So as good as some of these systems are, and perhaps this could last 250,000 miles, I honestly don't know. They haven't been around long enough to figure that out. Although I will say that Toyota's really good at hybrids.
Have you seen the badge on the front of the car, Nathan?
No, but this is a plug-in hybrid, and Toyota's relatively new into this stream, right? Especially with all of this. I mean, all of these electric motors, gas engine, all that stuff, that is more complexity. I cannot go under this hood and do anything. I would be afraid to actually replace the spark plugs. I'd probably screw that up because there's a certain gap that I would totally screw up and blow it up or whatever. The point is that something like this is a lot more complex. The days of servicing something like this, forget it. You have to go to a Toyota mechanic. You have to plug it into an OBD2. No way are you going to be servicing this thing. I mean, even changing the oil, I think, would be I'm not too sure about. So that's my point.
That's true.
A lot more complexity.
I don't think your average RAV4 buyer's out there getting this.
I don't think they're throwing, getting their knuckles busted, messing around. But then again, imagine this in 30 years. Your kids and your grandkids are going to be buying these things and used. How will they be acting? How will they run? Can you throw in a whole bunch of those, those little batteries you can buy and, for going to the campsite and all that? Are they going to buy 50 of those, throw them in the back, try to do a series thing and hook it up to the thing and make a hot rod? Who knows?
Yeah, that's true. That would be pretty fun. I do think, though, if you look at like this vehicle's competitive set, right? You got like the Escape plug-in hybrid.
Yep.
Which you talked about. Cool vehicle, front-wheel drive only.
Yeah, but it's a lot less expensive too. Mm-hmm. So if you don't need all-wheel drive, it's definitely a good alternative. And that system is very similar to what's currently inside of the Ford Maverick, something that we know works.
What's the what was the price on ours? We had 45.
It was lower than that. Escape? I think it was 43. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, 43.
And that was fully loaded. That was the titanium with all the bells and whistles, obviously without all-wheel drive. And that was one of my complaints. I did a top 5 things I liked and disliked. It was kind of interesting. People are like, "Oh, you hate Ford." It's like, dude, there's likes and dislikes, which is kind of part of why we do these things. But this vehicle in itself, in terms of what it does, in terms of what it provides, I do think that this solves a lot of those questions. For those of you who really don't want to get rid of your internal combustion engine, I think that this is the right way to go, personally speaking.
And it'll tow. So a lot of the new electric
how much will this tow? Do you know?
2,500.
I mean, for a little crossover, that's not too bad. That's more than my trailer.
Yeah, people are saying even a long wait in Australia. Isn't this based on the Prius Prime all-wheel drive? Says Andrew. No, it's not. So the Prius Prime was kind of one of the earlier.
Completely different.
Yeah, but front-wheel drive only.
Yeah.
There is an all-wheel drive Prius, but it's not a plug-in hybrid.
And that one has only like 5 or 6 horsepower going to the rear wheels or something like that. Completely different vehicle. But that one, and even the electric motor that they use in the Prius Prime, the Prius Prime is a completely different electric motor that they use in here.
Well, it's got 7 horsepower.
Yeah, I know, but it's the most efficient electric motor Toyota's ever put in a little vehicle. The whole point is to get you unstuck from snow. It's not really, performance oriented. This thing, however, this thing will fly. There is an issue, though. One more issue. I only have a few issues with this, and that is flying around a corner. This ain't light. It's a lot heavier than your average RAV4. And I actually drove, was it the Adventure? That's the kind of off-roady?
TRD.
Yeah. No, not even the TRD. Even though
just the
regular,
Adventure?
standard kind of Adventure. I love the way it handled. I thought it would handle great, and it was just a decent car. This thing is very, very heavy, and you can feel it, especially if you know your RAV4, right?
Right.
So, yeah, you feel it around a corner.
So for a while, it was like this in the Outlander plug-in hybrid.
Yeah.
And then there was a Ford, and now we've got the Hyundai Kia offerings, too, coming in hot.
Yeah.
So lots and lots and lots of plug-in hybrids coming into this class, which is pretty cool. Do you know the Outlander Mitsubishi plug-in hybrid was one of the only plug-in hybrids ever to have fast charging?
Not only that, but it was, I believe, at one point in time, was the only plug-in hybrid that had, did it have all-wheel drive or a third-row seat? It had one of those two.
A lot of interesting claims to fame, the Outlander.
One of the few real mid-sized plug-in hybrid SUVs for a while.
Yeah. Oh, and we had a video years ago where I ran a microwave off of the first generation, and in the middle of a snowstorm. That sucked. Not the video, but it sucked.
I drove the Outlander hybrid, the plug-in hybrid. So they just redid the Outlander, right? It's based on the Rogue now, but I drove the outgoing one, the plug-in hybrid. It's not a.
The newer
it's
one,
not very good.
Okay, the newer one has a much nicer interior. It's quieter. It's supposed to handle better. So those are all positives. I haven't driven it yet.
So Jason says, when do you think vehicles like this will reach the 100-mile mark for all electric? I'm not entirely sure they ever will, to be honest with you, because I think the battery size that you would need in order to reach 100 miles, at that point you're pretty much close to buying just a full gasoline vehicle, with one exception. The BMW i3 with the range extender. Now that's interesting. A range extender is an electric car with a little tiny gas engine to get you to the next charger if you run out.
Yeah, it really is more of a generator as opposed to something that's built for pushing your vehicle along. And there are a lot of questions out there. I bet you guys are asking too about having a diesel electric setup, which would be ideal, right? Because diesels are the perfect generator.
Yeah.
And so having a small displacement diesel, and they build like little tiny 3-cylinder diesels overseas, putting that in here and having it charge the batteries all the time and making it run would be super efficient. But there are problems.
Well, I asked, this is interesting.
Yeah.
I was just on a Toyota trip pretty recently, and we asked some of the engineers in charge about what about a diesel plug-in hybrid.
And what they say?
This was the face they made. They went, no, it's not going to happen. Because the issue is when you look at like the standard consumer's eyes, like through their eyes, they see diesel as truck stuff, you know, rolling coal, big trailers. But they look at electric cars as like clean, green leaves, right?
Which is a funny irony because if you're running clean diesel or biodiesel, you're actually technically running a lot cleaner than an awful lot of these cars if you do the math. But that's
It's interesting, right? But in the eyes of a consumer, right?
Right. You have to look at all of them.
There are too many of you out there that have squatted F-250s running straight pipes, blowing smoke, that now we don't get cool plug-in hybrid diesels because the average conception is diesels are dirty, electric is clean.
Right, and then the other side is that Volkswagen did no favors to diesels here in the United States.
It's not great.
And FCI did the same thing. And it's unfortunate because I always thought that diesels belonged in SUVs. Anything that weighed over 2 tons, it should have a diesel engine. That was what I used to think. Now, there is one more thing. The overall thing about diesels is that they're very heavy. And on top of that, Americans do not want diesels at gas pumps. Believe it or not, you're going to see these things disappearing more and more in the future. So just keep that in mind. I know it sounds strange, but trucks are diesels, cars are not. That's the way Americans look at them. So Tommy's point.
Yeah, I agree. It's a shame. So one more thing before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Tar3-101 says, this versus Volvo XC60 Recharge T8.
Now, didn't you just drive it?
I just drove it.
That's a good quinky-dink.
You think that this is a hot rod? That's got like 455 horsepower.
Damn!
455, 0 to 60 in the mid 4-second range.
And more range, finally.
And finally, it goes 35 miles on a single charge versus 18. That thing is rad. And one last thing I want to point out, which people kind of get confused, right? People think that when the battery is dead on this car, it becomes slower. That is not the case because Toyota always keeps a buffer in the battery, just like a standard hybrid, so that when you plant it, you're always getting all 300 horsepower, regardless of the battery state of charge.
Right, you are, Tommy. And one final note on that is that battery size is not exactly what you're getting. So, for instance, 18 kilowatt hours in this vehicle, you're not using all 18 kilowatt hours of it, and it can be significantly less. Sometimes it's close to the top, but it's never the top. Once again, keeping the buffer open. Anything else before we go?
I think we're good, guys. Let us know what you think of the Toyota RAV4 Prime in the comment section below. I'm taking this off-road tomorrow. We're going to try to get it stuck. And we'll see you on another episode here shortly.
Adios, amigos.